Chapter 571 to 580. Xiang Yun's heart was filled with joy. King Cheng, you finally answered the phone. On the other end of the phone, King Cheng's voice was weak, as if she deliberately lowered her voice. Big sister. Is something the matter? King Cheng. I am currently in the capital. Where is your big brother? Can you tell me? Xiang Yun had no time to care about King Cheng's suppressed tone and her unfamiliar tone. She only came for one purpose, and that was to find Liancheng. She needed to be sure that he was fine before she could feel at ease. As for the other people's attitude, she did not have the time to care about it at all. Big sister, what did you say? You came to the capital? King Cheng could not hide her surprise. Her tone was raised, but she suppressed it immediately. Even her tone revealed a trace of urgency. She said, Big sister, quickly go back. You can't come here. Why? Xiang Yun's heart sank. Only then did she notice that King Cheng seemed to be not right. She seemed to be hiding from people. Big brother is fine for the time being. Don't worry. Big sister, I can't say anymore. Remember, go back quickly. When King Cheng said this, the phone suddenly stopped. Xiang Yun called again, and there was no way to answer. She thought about it and went to call Granny Liao again. But just as the phone rang, the other side hung up. What's wrong? What did the other side say? In the taxi, Feiang Jianren kept staring at Xiang Yun. Naturally, he did not miss the disappointment on her face. King Cheng's voice was too low just now. Even though he was so close to Jian Yun, he did not hear it. But it should be bad news. Otherwise, Jian Yun would not have such an expression. Others said that he is fine for now and told me not to worry. They want me to. Jian Yun bit her lower lip, and the corner of her eye twitched nervously. They want me to leave the capital quickly. Are you guys looking for people in the capital? The taxi driver was a man in his 40s. The northerners were enthusiastic and talkative. He saw that Jian Yun and Feiang Jianren had an expensive temperament. They were good-looking. He knew they were rich people, even though he could see through their clothes. So he talked a little more. At this time, it was already close to 10 o'clock. The sun was hanging in the sky. The sun was very bright. Jian Yun lowered her head and did not have the mood to answer the driver. She felt that her entire body was trembling. Yes, we are here to see friends. Feiang Jianren replied casually. The driver looked at the woman in the rearview mirror. She was sitting there with her head bowed. Although the two of them did not want to talk to him, he knew it was still a long way to go, so he did not have anything to say. I just heard that the lady wants you to go back. I think you should go back as soon as you finish visiting your friends. The imperial capital has not been peaceful recently. The imperial capital isn't peaceful? Isn't this the territory of the Son of Heaven? Could it be that there are still people rebelling? Feiang Jianren's eyes lit up. He thought to himself that these drivers were usually the most well-informed. Could it be that they knew something? They are not rebelling. Now they are very peaceful. The leader is a hard-working and capable person. He continued. He managed China with a strong national power and a peaceful country. No one wants to rebel. Even if they want to, no one will support them. We, the common people, want a peaceful life. The days are so good now. There aren't people who are so bored. The driver was a chatterbox. He talked for a long time before he got to the point. But big families are not peaceful because of internal strife. The driver suddenly lowered his voice. This big family is very powerful. They are a century-old family and are very wealthy. They have many subsidiary companies under them and many small companies under them. He continued. This upheaval is incredible. The sky of these celestial Tharch capital city has darkened a little. When Jian Yun heard the driver mention internal strife in the family, she immediately pricked up her ears to listen. But hearing it, the driver did not say anything useful. She could not help but feel even more disappointed. Immediately, she secretly laughed at herself in her heart. She actually fell to the point where she wanted to hear news about the Hu family from a driver she did not know. And she was actually the daughter-in-law of the Hu family. Is the result out? Who won? Feiang Jianren looked at Jian Yun and pretended to be interested. He did not think the same as Jian Yun. Sometimes, he knew more about people who were at the bottom of society. I have not heard of this. The news has been blocked. The Hu family has a very important position in the business world. There is also the Liao family and Mu family behind them. It is very easy to block the news, said the driver, disappointed. Then, he changed the topic. Liao family, do you know about this? It's the founding general, General Liao Zongrong Liao. This is the glory of China, but I don't know why, but All these years, the Liao family and Hu family hadn't been close, he continued. As for the Mu family's reputation in the political world, I don't need to say anything. Along the way, although the driver didn't say anything useful, Zhang Yun could more or less understand the current situation in the imperial capital, as well as the relationship between the Hu family, Liao family, and the Mu family. The young man Fang Jianran brought Jian Yun to see was called He Zidong. He was considered a high-ranking member of the Hu's corporation because he came from a powerful family, and He Zidong was a member of the He family in the imperial capital. It was almost midnight when they arrived at the club that He Zidong was talking about. He Zidong ordered some food. When he saw Jian Yun, he didn't ask any more questions. He just kept looking at her. Jian Yun did not have an appetite. She might have been nervous on the way, but she did not throw up. The fish on the table made her feel nauseous, so she only ordered plain porridge and side dishes. She quietly covered her nose and lowered her head to eat quietly. He Zidong and Fang Jianran were both men, so they were not that attentive. They did not expect Jian Yun to have a bad appetite because she was pregnant. They only thought she was worried and nervous, so they did not ask too much. It was not easy to endure until the meal was over. Jian Yun got up and went to the washroom. When she came back, she heard Fang Jianran and He Zidong talking about Hu's. He Zidong looked at Jian Yun. Actually, I already told you everything I know. I'm not sure about the details. He continued. Hu Chengfeng is in charge of Hu's now. The news has been blocked. Then, where is Hu Liancheng now? Jian Yun was most concerned about this question. Her palms were sweating nervously. I really don't know, but I guess Hu Liancheng was taken away by Liao family. He Zidong looked at Jian Yun curiously. He had seen the news on the internet before and found out that Hu Liancheng was married to a commoner girl with no family background. When the news came out, it was immediately blocked. He didn't see what the girl looked like in the photos. Now that he saw her in person, he had to take a good look. She was taken away by the Liao family? Jian Yun felt that something was not right when she heard this. But before she could ask, she heard He Zidong continue. Old Master Hu hasn't been found yet. Didn't he say he found it? Fang Jianran couldn't help but exclaim. This is only what Hu family announced to the public. It is also to stabilize the hearts of the shareholders under their banner. You should know that Hu Chengfeng is not a soft-hearted person. He Zidong was worried. Hu Chengfeng, of course he wasn't a soft-hearted person. Jian Yun bit her lips and immediately thought of the man with a dark expression. When he found her, he did not hide his ambition towards Hu's corporation at all. After so long of deployment, he bribed the shareholders and Shen Fangqi as his backing. Jian Yun did not dare to think about it. Miss Jian, listen to my advice. You'd better go back to King He. It's not safe here in the imperial capital. The internal conflict in the Hu family has not only affected the Hu's corporation, but also the economic turmoil. Forgive me for being blunt, but your identity is rather awkward. Although you and young Master Hu are legally husband and wife, you have not been publicly recognized by the Hu family. Therefore, I think it's best for you to leave the imperial capital and prevent others from using you, lest you bring harm to yourself. He Zidong looked straight at Jian Yun's face and said in a deep voice. Speaking of which, as soon as he saw the woman in front of him, he had a good impression of her. He also knew that his good friend liked this girl very much. He had always been curious about what kind of girl could actually charm Fang Jianran to such an extent. Later on, when he found out that Hu Liancheng had stayed in Green Lake for this girl, he became even more curious. When he saw her today, He Zidong had to admit that even though the girl in front of him was not absolutely beautiful, she had a light and elegant temperament. It was like the green spring after melting the snow. She gave people a very warm feeling, but she did not lose her pride. No wonder such a girl could make Hu Liancheng go crazy. No, I'm not going back. I came here to see Hu Liancheng this time. I won't go back until I see him. Jian Yun stubbornly looked up. He Zidong sighed. But where is young Master Hu now? I really don't know. You don't know. Someone must know. Jian Yun narrowed her eyes. Who are you talking about? Hu Chengfeng? If he knew where young Master Hu is, he would have sent assassins to kill him. He Zidong suddenly realized that he had said something wrong. He immediately shut his mouth and subconsciously looked at Fang Jianran, then at Jian Yun. Fang Jianran glanced at He Zidong. Before he came, he had told He Zidong not to mention Hu Liancheng's injury in front of Jian Yun. He did not mention it but mentioned Hu Chengfeng's assassin. Jian Yun was so smart that she must have guessed it. Sure enough, Jian Yun's face turned paler and her lips trembled. Assassin? Hu Liancheng was injured by the assassin? He Zidong saw that he could not hide it, so he admitted it. That's what I heard, but don't worry, young Master Hu is not in danger. Xian Yun's nails dug into her flesh. She knew that He Zidong was comforting her, but she was not a fool. Hu Chengfeng was so crazy. He had been planning for so long and he could send out assassins. How could he let Hu Liancheng go so easily? Moreover, if Hu Liancheng was really fine, he wouldn't have stayed silent for so long. So, it was also Hu Chengfeng who caused Grandpa Hu's disappearance? Xian Yun calmed herself down and tried hard to calm herself down. Who else has the guts other than him? He Zidong sneered, relying on himself in the US far away from the imperial city. He wantonly encroached on the shares, used means to bribe the subsidiary company, raised a group of crazy people, and stirred up a foul atmosphere over there. Is there no one in Hu family who cares if he makes a move so brazenly? Fiang Zhanren frowned. With Mrs. Hu as his backing, President Hu is also a weak person. If not, why would young Master Hu leave? There are many secrets behind this. A big family like the Hu family has many secrets that outsiders can't tell. He Zidong shook his head with a helpless expression. In fact, there have been many problems with the operation of Hu's corporation in the past few years. However, the higher-ups are busy fighting for power and power. Each of them has their own backing. Young Master Hu is the crown prince in name, but for some reason, President Hu doesn't trust him. He doesn't give him any real power in the corporation. Old Master Hu's health hasn't been good for the past few years. He has been retired. Initially, we all thought that with young Master Hu's courage and ability, he shouldn't be so defenseless. Anyway, it's very strange. He Zidong didn't know, but Jian Yun felt that she understood why Hu Liancheng didn't fight back. It was because his heart was not that cold yet. He still missed his parents and family. After such a serious injury and his sister was in a coma, he even exiled himself. He did not even have the desire to live. He did not care about money and power. Otherwise, they would not have met each other. Hong Longa at that time. She had only casually saved his life, so how could he have engraved it in his heart for so many years? However, Jian Yun still felt that everything that happened in the Hu family today was strange. Right, Miss Qian. You just said that someone knows where young Master Hu is. Who is that person? He Zidong asked curiously. He had always called Xian Yun, and Miss Qian, not Mrs. Hu. He was afraid that someone would eavesdrop on him. In fact, He Zidong did not exaggerate. The situation in the imperial capital was indeed very tense. The big families were fighting in the open and in the dark. They all wanted to enter the Hu's corporation and seek the greatest benefits for their families. Hu Chengfeng had used this point to win over the hearts of the people. Compared to Hu Xiangqian, who didn't do anything, Hu Chengfeng did have a lot of means and courage. However, most people, including He Zidong, knew that Hu Chengfeng was too treacherous and cunning. He was not suitable to be the leader of the Hu family. Even when Jian Yun was talking, she kept staring at her phone, afraid that she would miss any phone call. When she heard He Zidong's question, she looked up, but her mind was in a daze. Who would know where Hu Liancheng was? Someone would know. Who was this person? The first person Jian Yun subconsciously thought of was Granny Liao. Hu Liancheng and Shen Feiyanqi were not close, and their relationship was even to the point of being incompatible with each other. Shen Feiyanqi said that she was sorry for Hu Liancheng and Hu Qingcheng, but she was actually doing her best to indulge and help Hu Chengfeng. If there was one person in this world who was good to Hu Liancheng, it would definitely be Granny Liao. Just as she thought of Granny Liao, Jian Yun's phone rang, but she was in a daze. As if she did not hear it, it was Fiang Zhanren and He Zidong who reminded her. Jian Yun then lowered her head to look at her phone. When she saw it, her eyes immediately lit up. Grandma, where are you? Is Hu Liancheng with you? I want to see him. Can I see him? Xian Yun had just picked up the phone when she said urgently. At this moment, her hands were trembling and she almost could not hold the phone. Yun, Liancheng is fine. It is just that it is not convenient to contact you for now. Are you in the capital? Listen to Grandma and go back to Green Lake. Granny Liao's voice was very calm. It was a little unusual, especially when it was very quiet on the phone. It seemed that there was no sound at all. No, I'm not going back. He is injured, right? Grandma, even if we can't see him, can you let me talk to him? Xian Yun was very upset and her voice was full of tears. Why did everyone want her to go back? Her husband's life or death was unknown. How could she be at ease to go back? Xian Yun, it's not that Grandma doesn't want you to talk to him. It's just that Hu Liancheng is really inconvenient at the moment. Be good and listen to me. Go back to King Hu Lake. Since Granny Liao automatically got to know Jian Yun, she had always called her Yun. This was the first time she seriously called Jian Yun by her full name. This matter was enough to show her determination. Jian Yun was currently in a panic and did not notice that Granny Liao's tone was not right. At this moment, she only had one thought, and that was to find Hu Liancheng. Grandma, I will not go back unless I see him, Jian Yun said urgently. She heard no sound from the other side. She was afraid that Granny Liao would hang up her phone. She did not know when she would be able to contact the Hu family again. Jian Yun quickly said, Grandma, it's okay if I don't see him. I just want to hear his voice. She continued, Can you let him talk to me? Just one sentence. Jian Yun felt that she had never been so humble before. She humbly begged people everywhere, but she also bumped into walls everywhere. This made her feel a deep sense of powerlessness. In front of these rich and powerful people, she was really too weak. Yun, Grandma is also doing this for you. Hello. Granny Liao could hear that Jian Yun was about to cry, but at this time, in the suburbs of Beijing, in a sanatorium hidden in the mountains, Granny Liao was standing at a spotless ward window and deliberately lowered her voice. But when she heard the sobbing of the woman on the other end of the phone, she could not help but sigh. At the same time, she also turned back to look at the person lying on the bed. The person on the bed had a perfect and handsome face that seemed to have been meticulously carved by God. However, under the thick eyebrows that were like swords, his eyes were tightly shut, and his face was abnormally pale. He was not wearing any clothes on his upper body. The thin blanket was covered under his armpits. His exposed chest was wrapped in white gauze, and there were hidden traces of blood on the gauze. The person on the hospital bed was Ho Liancheng. He had been unconscious for many days. If it were not for General Liao and his men rushing over in time to bring him back, he would have bled out from the gunshot wound. Granny Liao looked at Hu Liancheng, and her eyes were wet. She wiped her eyes and turned her head again. Jian Yun, who was crying on the other side of the phone, said ruthlessly, Yun, go back. The imperial capital is not a place you should come to. As she spoke, Granny Liao did not wait for Jian Yun to speak. She reached out and hung up the phone. At this time, the nurse who had been staring at Hu Liancheng suddenly called out softly, Old madam, quickly look, young master's eyes seem to be moving. Granny Liao heard this and immediately ran over nervously. She saw Hu Liancheng, who had been unconscious for many days, rolling his eyes rapidly under his eyelids. He looked like he was about to wake up. She was so excited that she grabbed Hu Liancheng's hand. She was both nervous and expectant. It was the nurse who ran out and called the doctor. More than a dozen doctors entered the ward. This was the private sanatorium of Liao family. These doctors and nurses were given to General Liao by the higher-ups. Naturally, they were the best configurations. The most authoritative hospital director and associate hospital director personally examined Hu Liancheng. Just as they reached out their hands to lift Hu Liancheng's eyelids, the man who had been in a coma with his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Then they were overjoyed. He's awake. He's really awake. The director checked himself. After confirming that his vital signs were stable, he was relieved. Madam, everything is normal for young Master Hu. He will be fine after a while. Really? Is he really okay? Granny Liao was excited, but still wanted to confirm. The bullet was so close to his heart, and he bled so much. She suddenly covered her mouth and could not continue. On the bed, Hu Liancheng narrowed his eyes. When he had just opened his eyes, he had been absent-minded for a moment. But then he focused. His eyes were cold and filled with nobility and fierceness that could not be ignored. The position where the shot was indeed dangerous. But fortunately, young Master Hu had a strong physique. The surgery before was very successful, and he could recover very quickly. When the hospital director recalled the scene when Hu Liancheng was sent over that day, he could not help but feel some lingering fear. This was the grandson that General Liao doted on the most. Although he was a member of the Hu family, General Liao was only great-uncle. However, old General Liao did not care about the grandson and granddaughter of the Liao family. He especially liked Hu Liancheng. If they could not rescue Hu Liancheng now, the dean didn't dare to think about it. After confirming that Hu Liancheng was fine, Granny Liao put down some snacks and all the doctors and nurses left. When she turned around, she saw that Hu Liancheng was sure of her. What's wrong? Is it because of the wound? Do you want to eat something? Do you want water? Granny Liao asked with concern. A phone. Hu Liancheng said in a low voice. He had been in a coma for many days. His voice was a little hoarse, but he was still calm and steady. What call did you make when you just woke up? Have a good rest. Granny Liao thought that Hu Liancheng wanted the phone to call his people to ask about the progress of the matter. She could not help but blame. Your plan is all right. You can rest assured. The phone. However, Hu Liancheng still insisted on the phone. His eyes were fixed on the haggard Granny Liao, and he spat out 2 words. Yanduo. Granny Liao was stunned. She immediately remembered that she had just called Jian Yun. Could it be that Hu Liancheng woke up because he heard Jian Yun's voice on the phone? If she had known that Jian Yun had such a great influence on Hu Liancheng. When Hu Liancheng was unconscious, she should have brought Jian Yun over to take care of him. Perhaps he would have woken up long ago. Granny Liao was a little distracted, but then she secretly sighed. Because she knew that the situation was different. Even if she knew that Jian Yun could wake Hu Liancheng up, she could not bring Jian Yun over. Grandma? Hu Liancheng had just woken up and was still very weak, but his eyes were as sharp as ice and snow. Okay, I'll call Yun now. Granny Liao quickly said. She found her phone, and only after looking at it did she realize that Jian Yun had been calling her all this time. It was just that her phone was muted, so she did not hear it. In a short time, there were already more than 20 missed calls. Granny Liao did not change her expression. She called back, and the other side immediately picked up. Grandma, please, let me talk to him. Although Jian Yun was not crying, her voice was filled with despair. It's me. The moment Hu Liancheng heard Jian Yun's voice, his heart suddenly tightened. He had to use all of his strength to forcefully endure. He forcefully resisted the urge to see her and want to hug her in his arms, making his voice sound a little more normal. On the other side of the phone, Jian Yun suddenly heard Hu Liancheng's voice and actually did not react in time. Hu Liancheng, is it really you? Jian Yun's hands trembled violently. She kept feeling that she was hallucinating and could not believe her ears. Silly girl, I just left for a few days and you can't even hear my voice? When Hu Liancheng's unique low laughter came from the other side, Jian Yun suddenly covered her mouth and tears flowed down her face. Hu Liancheng, it really is Hu Liancheng. Duo, are you listening? Hu Liancheng suddenly could not hear Jian Yun's words, but there was a sobbing sound from the other end of the phone. His heart immediately tightened. He had just woken up, and his body and mind were both weak. So, even if he could not bear to part with it, he had to end the call as soon as possible. Otherwise, as time went by, Jian Yun would definitely find out that something was wrong. I'm here. How are you? They said that you were injured. Where are your injuries? Is it serious? Does it hurt? Jian Yun opened her mouth, but there was a sobbing tone in her voice. When she said that, Jian Yun tightened her shirt around her chest. She did not know why, but she felt her heart palpitate again. It was as if something had grabbed her heart and stabbed it with a sharp icicle. It was a cold and sharp pain. This kind of feeling had already appeared several times. Them? Who are they? Who did you hear that I was injured? Who are you with now? Is it an Imperial? Hu Liancheng's fingers trembled slightly when he heard this. He did not answer, and instead asked a question. Granny Liao picked up the phone and turned on the speaker. She put the phone next to Hu Liancheng's pillow and went out to avoid the call. Hu Liancheng was the only one in the ward. When he heard Jian Yun ask him if he was hurt, his heart started to hurt. It was not the pain of the wound, but the pain of not having news of him for the past few days. Furthermore, Hu Liancheng also wanted to confirm whether Jian Yun was safe at this moment. Otherwise, even if he had to risk his life to save her, he would still save her. I'm in the capital. Jian Yun heard Hu Liancheng's voice and did not sound strange. At most, she was a little tired. She felt a little relieved and heard him ask her who she was with. She subconsciously glanced at Feiang Jianren and He Zidong, who had been looking at her the whole time. He Zidong nodded at Jian Yun. Jian Yun then said to Hu Liancheng, Feiang Jianren. He Zidong saw Jian Yun hesitate for a moment and immediately whispered his name. Jian Yun then said, He Zidong. He family? Hu Liancheng frowned. Give him your phone. He Zidong was a member of the Hu's corporation, and he was in an internal conflict in the Hu family. Now, Hu Chengfeng had the upper hand, and Hu Liancheng's whereabouts were unknown. Most of the families that were on par with the Hu family were still watching. Although they didn't like Hu Chengfeng, who had an impure bloodline, they didn't dare to act rashly. They placed their bets on Hu Liancheng, who was currently at a disadvantage. Those families that had attached themselves to the Hu family had already joined the team. The He family was a small family. The patriarch had already submitted to Hu Chengfeng before Hu Chengfeng took over the power. Therefore, when Hu Liancheng heard that Jian Yun was with He Zidong, he became nervous. He was afraid that something would happen to Jian Yun. Jian Yun obediently handed the phone to He Zidong. She did not know what Hu Liancheng wanted to do, but after hearing Hu Liancheng's voice, her mind became much clearer, and she realized something very important. She came to the imperial capital so suddenly. If Hu Chengfeng's people found out, it would be really troublesome. If she was used by him to threaten Hu Liancheng, wouldn't she cause him trouble again? Thinking of this, Jian Yun immediately broke out in cold sweat. When He Zidong and Hu Liancheng spoke, his expression was extremely respectful and respectful. Jian Yun only heard him say, "Young Master Hu, don't worry. Although my father submitted to Hu Chengfeng, I did not. I can swear to the heavens that I will not tell anyone about Miss Jian's matter, and will not reveal today's matter." "All right, I understand. I will give it to her now." Jian Yun took the phone from He Zidong and quickly put it beside her ear. "Hu Liancheng, you have not told me where you are hurt." "I am not hurt. Those are just the news that was released. It is fake. Don't believe the rumors." Hu Liancheng chuckled. Just as he grinned, he frowned. He tried his best not to let out a gasp. His wound hurt so much. Really? Jian Yun was skeptical, but she trusted Hu Liancheng very much. She knew he was so strong. How could he be defeated by a mere Hu Chengfeng? It must be because he was pushed out of the group and left in anger. However, the Hu's was in trouble now. As the successor, he could not ignore the efforts of the ancestors of the Hu family. He was summoned back by old Master Hu and had to expel that bad guy, Hu Chengfeng. That was why he had arranged a thorough plan. It was one of the reasons why he was injured. Jian Yun thought of her own reasons. The fog in her eyes finally dissipated. The fear and worry in her eyes also disappeared. It must be like this. Actually, Jian Yun had already guessed it right. Of course, other than Hu Liancheng pretending to be injured here, he was really shot. If you think a scratch on your hand is considered an injury, then I am indeed injured. Hu Liancheng chuckled. He could hear Jian Yun's voice. He felt that his body was no longer in so much pain. Only he himself knew that he could survive such a heavy gunshot wound because he had been thinking about her. He was worried that she would cry and suffer. That kind of pain could not be forgotten even in a coma. Okay? Jian Yun did not ask any more questions. After thinking for a while, she opened her mouth again. "Can I really not see you?" "Not for now. I am very safe now. Don't worry." When Hu Liancheng said this, he found a few people standing at the door of the ward. They were all wearing radio headphones. He nodded and said to Jian Yun, I have something to do." "I cannot tell you. I will send someone to send you back to King Hu. Listen to me. Promise me not to come to the capital. Don't call me. I will call you when I have time." "Okay." Jian Yun's eyes were full of tears. Although she could not bear to part with him, she also understood that Hu Liancheng was doing something very important. She could not let her personal feelings affect him. "I love you," Hu Liancheng whispered and hung up the phone. Jian Yun gritted her teeth and tried not to cry. In the ward, the few people received Hu Liancheng's signal and walked in one after another. "Young master." The leading man knew that Hu Liancheng had just woken up, so he was worried and did not dare to disturb him. "It's okay. Tell me." Hu Liancheng was very weak. When he spoke to Jian Yun just now, he wanted to pretend that he was not injured and make his voice sound normal. That was why he had spent a lot of effort to feel the pain in his wound at this moment. The phone just now was monitored. The thin man with the computer in his hand said seriously, "I have already interfered." The call was not leaked, but the other side might have been found. When Hu Liancheng heard this, his eyes narrowed, but there was a faint light flowing inside. No one would think that he was asleep. Young Master Ji Feng has already asked Ji Feng to lead people to protect Miss Jian in secret, but he is afraid of the Liao family. The person who spoke was Chen Xin. A few days ago, he was called back to Hu Liancheng's side. The Ji Feng that Chen Xin mentioned was the most powerful bodyguard that Hu Liancheng had secretly trained. He was even more powerful than Chen Xin. Hu Liancheng had two teams of bodyguards, one bright and one dark. On the surface, Chen Xin was the leader, but his strength was not bad. The team underground was led by Ji Feng. Few people had seen him before, but no one had ever been unfamiliar with this name. His ability even surpassed Chen Xin's. It could be said that Hu Liancheng had started to deploy this plan many years ago. He had been waiting for this day. Granny Liao quickly came in and chased him away. "All right, Liancheng, you just woke up. Don't waste your time. The doctor said you need to rest more." Hu Liancheng nodded at Chen Xin. Chen Xin understood and led the others out. "Liancheng, just let Chen Xin do these things. You are so badly injured. You still need to rest." Granny Liao had recovered from Hu Liancheng's excitement. Her eyes were swollen and swollen. It was obvious that she had just cried. She kept wiping her eyes as she spoke. "Grandma, I am fine." Hu Liancheng's expression was calm. "You said you were fine. You scared me. Fortunately, you're fine. If something happened to you, our Hu family is finished." Granny Liao had just held back her tears. Hu Liancheng's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but the corner of his eye twitched. He saw someone walking in from the corner of his eye. He lifted his eyelids and looked at the person. "Grandfather," Hu Liancheng called out. The person who came in was old Master Hu had been missing for many days. He was holding a walking stick. There were 2 medical staff beside him. Although he looked very tired, his body should be fine. He left on his own and did not let anyone support him. After entering the ward, old Master Hu waved his hand and let the 2 people leave. However, when Granny Liao saw old Master Hu come in, her face immediately darkened. She did not conceal the anger on her face. She suddenly stood up and pointed at old Master Hu. Her eyes were filled with anger. She said, "What are you doing here? Look at how miserable we are now. Get out." Then. Old Master Hu's already somewhat pale face turned even uglier at this moment. The old patriarch of Hu family, who had always been high and mighty, actually revealed a trace of shame and helplessness. "Get out." Granny Liao's brows stood erect. Clearly, she was really angry. She looked at old Master Hu with hatred in her eyes. Fen, don't be like this. Liancheng is still here." Old Master Hu's face turned paler again. He glanced at Hu Liancheng in embarrassment. When old Master Hu mentioned Hu Liancheng, Granny Liao's accumulated anger erupted. "You also know that Liancheng is here? Then why don't you think about why Liancheng was injured so badly? If it wasn't for saving you, how could Liancheng have suffered such a heavy gunshot wound and almost lost his life?" Old Master Hu lowered his head even more. It was as if his essence had been sucked out. "I didn't expect it either." "Hu Ziui, is this all you know how to say that you didn't expect it?" Granny Liao was furious. Her eyes seemed to be about to spew fire. She said, "How many years has it been? You only know how to say the same thing. I've had enough of it for so many years. If it wasn't for Liancheng and King Cheng, I really hoped that the Hu family would fall apart. I really don't want to stay in this disgusting place any longer." Fen, don't be like this." Old Master Hu's face was pale and his legs were shaking. "Grandpa, sit down first." Hu Liancheng didn't have enough key essence. As soon as old Master Hu came in, Granny Liao was in a rage. He couldn't find a chance to talk to her. Seeing old Master Hu pull a chair and sit beside the bed, Granny Liao turned her head and did not look at him anymore. Old Master Hu looked at Granny Liao and secretly sighed in his heart. He then looked up at Hu Liancheng and asked with concern, "Liancheng, how do you feel?" "I'm fine." Hu Liancheng was actually very uncomfortable. He had been shot in the side of his heart. The wound was only a few millimeters away from his heart. It was very dangerous. He had almost been hit in the heart and almost died. Although his vital signs had stabilized, and he had woken up at this time, it did not mean that his body could recover immediately. Now, every time he breathed, he felt pain in his heart. However, Hu Liancheng did not show it at all. Although his handsome face was a little pale, there was no change in his expression. Old Master Hu nodded. He seemed to be relieved as he murmured, "That's good, that's good. How could he be fine? Liancheng took the shot for you. Did you forget what he did when he went to the hospital? He had lost so much blood." Granny Liao suddenly covered her face and started to cry. Her ancestor was a general. When she was young, she was valiant and valiant. She had been in the army. Although she was only a medical personnel in the army, she had a fierce personality and was bold and careful. She had always been a proud daughter of heaven. She had never cried many times in her life. Even when she saw Hu Liancheng covered in blood that day, she could remain calm and composed. At this moment, because of the deep sense of powerlessness that radiated from the depths of her heart, She could not help but cry. I'm sorry. I really did not know that Cheng Ho actually. Old Master Hu knew that it was too late to say anything now. His face was pale and there was guilt and regret in his eyes. Haha, you don't know? Granny Lio suddenly put down her hand when she heard that. She suddenly lifted her head and looked at Old Master Hu with a sharp and cold gaze. How could you not know? All these years, if it was not for your indulgence, Shen Fangqi would have the guts to help Hu Chengfeng. Old Master Hu lowered his head and did not speak, but his expression had betrayed him. Hu Zihui, don't think I don't know. You have been helping Shen Yuehua and her son for so many years. You have never forgotten the seed you sowed. You have not forgotten that woman. It's just that your son is too useless. Otherwise, there would be nothing for Qian in Huo's. Granny Liao sneered. Her eyes were like blades as she stared at Old Master Hu. If you did not agree, where would Hu Chengfeng get the qualifications and resources? Entering Harvard, Hu's, and even devouring the resources of Hu's. She continued, wasn't it you who allowed him to turn the Hu's upside down? Fen, the child is here. Can you not mention what happened in the past? Old Master Hu pinched the space between his eyebrows. Clearly, he felt helpless about what Granny Liao said, but he did not deny it. Because he knew that no one would believe him, even if he denied it now. You have no conscience. All these years, you clearly know what Shen Fangqi and Hu Chengfeng have done. You know that Hu Chengfeng almost killed Liancheng and King Cheng, but you did not interfere in the slightest. Don't say that you have a disgusting excuse to retire. Others do not know, but I know the truth very well. The more Granny Liao spoke, the angrier she got. All these years of resentment and anger, she finally had a burst of anger today. On the surface, you pretended to be magnanimous and said that the Hus should be taken over by the strongest person and let the people below fight for power. In fact, how much resources and support did you give Hu Chengfeng in private? If I didn't object, even that family head token of yours would have been in Hu Chengfeng's hands now. What's the result? Haha, not only does that rebel not appreciate you, he wants to kill you instead. Haha, haha. Granny Liao suddenly laughed when she said this. She laughed until tears came out. Old Master Hu bent his waist. His hand that was holding the walking stick was trembling. It showed that he was a little excited at this moment. Have you said enough? He asked. Although his voice was soft, there was a trace of anger in it. He looked at Granny Liao with a sharp gaze. Clearly, Granny Liao's words had hit his sore spot. Not enough. Granny Liao laughed as she cried. I have been deceived by you all my life. Today, you still protect the family of that rebel. Haha, even Xiang Qian was. Stop talking. Old Master Hu suddenly flew into a rage and said angrily, Liancheng is so badly injured. Do you really have to say these things at this time? I've already realized my mistake. Don't you even give me a chance to explain? Granny Liao suddenly looked up at Hu Liancheng. She saw that his face was pale. His chest was wrapped in thick gauze and his lips were pale and bloodless. At this moment, he was looking at her quietly. There was concern in his eyes. Liancheng. Granny Liao just realized that she had lost her composure in her rage. All the strength in her body seemed to have been suddenly taken away. She slumped down beside the bed and reached out to grab Hu Liancheng's hand. After venting her anger, her mood slowly calmed down. At the same time, she also secretly made a decision in her heart. Grandma. Hu Liancheng was in great pain. He had exhausted too much energy before. Now he wanted to speak, but he could not hold on. Don't talk. Have a good rest. Granny Liao loved Hu Liancheng and Hu Qingcheng the most. She had been disappointed in Hu Xiangqian's son for a long time. No matter what, she had to protect Hu Liancheng. Granny Liao turned her head and looked coldly at Old Master Hu. She mocked him. This Hu's is no longer what it used to be. We will not stay in the Hu's anymore, but we will never give up what we deserve. Old Master Hu's hand trembled when he heard her. Granny Liao sneered and patted the back of Hu Liancheng's hand. Her voice softened. Liancheng, our Liao family will always be your backing. I would like to see what kind of dirty tricks these despicable people can use. However, when Old Master Hu heard this, his hands trembled. The last trace of blood on his face faded. Under his raised eyelids, shock filled his eyes. Everyone knew that Hu family was a big financial group. They were the richest family in 100 years. They could even occupy a place in China, or even the world. However, this was a glory that only happened in the past few decades. It was only after old Master Hu took power that the Hu family rose from an ordinary family to a top financial group. The role played by the Liao family could not be ignored. It was precisely after the marriage with the Liao family that the Hu family rose rapidly with the support of the Liao family in military and political matters. After all, no matter how rich one was, they were nothing in the eyes of those who had tremendous power and influence. Old Master Hu suddenly felt a deep sense of fear. If the Liao family no longer supported the Hu family, then how long could the foundation that he painstakingly built last? At the same time, Jia Yun ended the call with Hu Liancheng. Her heart, which had been panicking for the past few days, finally relaxed a little. Although there were many loopholes in Hu Liancheng's words, Jia Yun chose to ignore them at this moment. She believed in him. Even if he lied to her, there must be something difficult to hide. Miss Jian, although I am a member of the He family, the He family is not a person who doesn't know right from wrong. The Hu's is in a mess now, and Hu Chengfeng is the dictator. Many people are angry but don't dare to say anything. I admire young Master Hu very much. So, you can rest assured about what happened today. I will not say a word, He Zidong said in a deep voice. In fact, He Zidong had hesitated before. He was a member of the He family. The He family wanted to seek refuge with Hu Chengfeng. Although he disdained the He family's actions, he could only pretend to support them. After all, he was still a senior member of the Hu's. But now that the great Xia was about to fall, he didn't want to stay out of it. The brief conversation with Hu Liancheng had made him realize how tough and decisive this man was. Even though he didn't know what Hu Liancheng was doing, he still chose to believe in him unconditionally. Xian Yun was a little distracted. She didn't know what she was thinking. Fiang Jianran, who had been silent all this time, opened his mouth and looked at Jian Yun. What do you plan to do now? Jian Yun's long eyelashes trembled, and she raised her eyes to look at Fiang Jianran. He wants me to go back to King Hu to wait for him. Fiang Jianran stared at Jian Yun and only nodded after a long time. Then let's go. At this moment, Fiang Jianran's heart was very bitter. Previously, no matter what he said, he could not persuade Jian Yun. Jian Yun insisted on coming to the capital personally. Now, she only said a few words to Hu Liancheng. Her entire person calmed down. If his mother did not interfere in their matters back then today, the person Jian Yun worried about in her heart was him. After He Zidong paid the bill and went out to drive, Fiang Jianran and Jian Yun stood in the hall and waited. Although Jian Yun calmed down, but that didn't mean she was at ease. She had a vague sense of unease. At this time, Jian Yun suddenly felt her lower abdomen twitch. Her heart jumped, and she quickly reached out to cover it. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Fiang Jianran saw Jian Yun's face suddenly turn pale. He hurriedly helped her into the restaurant's lobby to sit down. I'm fine. Jian Yun waved her hand, but the pain from her lower abdomen was still there. Her heart suddenly became anxious. Her child, do not let anything happen to her. But Jian Yun also knew that she did not sleep last night, and took the plane early in the morning to rush to the capital. She was anxious all the way and her mind was so tense that she was about to break. She did not eat anything. It must be because of this that her stomach hurt. I will pour you some hot water. Fang Jianran got up hurriedly. There was no need for him to say anything. There was already a waiter who brought a cup of hot water. Xian Yun took a few sips and felt warm in her stomach. Her lower abdomen was no longer as uncomfortable as before. She finally relaxed. Fang Jianran was still worried. Does it still hurt? Let me take you to the hospital. No need. I'm fine. I guess it's because I haven't eaten much in the past few days that I feel so bad. Jian Yun still remembered Hu Liancheng's words. Hu Liancheng wanted her to leave the capital as soon as possible. He said, Hu Chengfeng was crazy and it was not safe here. Although she did not know what had happened in the Hu family, Jian Yun chose to listen to Hu Liancheng. Previously, Hu Qingcheng and Granny Liao wanted her to leave the capital, but she was worried about Hu Liancheng. Now that she knew Hu Liancheng was safe, she naturally had to leave. Fang Jianran nodded. He squatted in front of Jian Yun and looked up at her slightly pale little face. He did not hide his concern for her. Then you rest for a while, and we will leave again. No, get in the car and rest again. Jian Yun felt a little uneasy for some reason. She felt that she could not delay any longer. She had to leave this place quickly. Just at that moment, she felt that there seemed to be eyes watching her from the dark. Fiang Jianran did not say anything. He reached out to Jian Yun and helped her up. He Zidong had already driven the car over. Jian Yun had been keeping her eyes closed ever since she got into the car. Fortunately, the pain in her lower abdomen was slowly getting better. She was no longer so worried and actually fell asleep in a daze. Jian Yun was woken up by the emergency brake. She subconsciously covered her lower abdomen. When she opened her eyes, she saw He Zidong and Feiang Jianren both had serious expressions. "What's wrong?" Jian Yun asked. Feiang Jianren patted Jian Yun's hand and signaled her not to speak. However, Jian Yun had already seen that the reason why He Zidong braked so quickly was because he was surrounded by a few cars. Jian Yun's heart skipped a beat. He Zidong was also very nervous. This was the road to the airport. It was very close to the airport. These people seemed to be waiting here specially. Could it be? However, Jian Yun had only been in the capital for a few hours. She had been with Feiang Jianren the whole time. She came to find him after getting off the plane. No one except him had seen her before. Even if Hu Chengfeng knew that she was here, he could not have rushed over so quickly. Then who was the person who stopped them? At this time, someone came down from the cars. The tall and thin young man walked outside He Zidong's driving room and knocked on the window politely. He Zidong was very nervous. He had just taken out his phone and was hesitating if he should call the police. However, the person seemed to know what he wanted to do. He smiled at him and then showed a document. It was a police ID. The person's surname was Zhang, and his rank was quite high. From He Zidong's experience, it did not seem fake. He Zidong's heart turned cold. The man was a police officer. Then why would he call the police? But why did these police stop him? However, because he knew it was a police officer, He Zidong was not that nervous. There were also people in the He family in the police station. As long as he said it, these people would naturally know his identity and wouldn't make things difficult for him. The window was lowered, and He Zidong's lips curled up into a smile. "Officer Zhang, I am a good, law-abiding citizen. I don't know why you want to stop my car." Sang Yong shook his head. "Mr. He, I'm not looking for you. Don't worry, none of you have broken the law." He looked past He Zidong and landed on Jian Yun, who was sitting behind the driver's seat. He smiled and said, "I was ordered to invite Miss Jian." Jian Yun frowned. "But I don't know you. Why should I go with you?" Feiang Jianren asked. "May I know who ordered Officer Zhang?" Zhang Yang seemed to have just seen Feiang Jianren. He raised his eyebrows as if he knew Feiang Jianren. "So, it's Mr. Feng. My girlfriend is also a pianist. She admires you very much." This Officer Zhang was quite polite. Jian Yun and Feiang Jianren looked at each other. When Zhang Yang saw her, he still maintained a smile. "Miss Jian, someone wants to see you. I hope you'll cooperate. We are also following orders. Can you tell me who wants to see me?" Jian Yun still wanted to confirm that Hu Liancheng and Hu Chengfeng were incompatible. What if Officer Zhang was working for Hu Chengfeng and was threatened as a hostage? Only now did Jian Yun realize that she was afraid. It's not the person Miss Jian thinks he is. Zhang Yang seemed to know what Jian Yun was thinking. The smile on his face grew wider. Miss Jian will know when she goes. Jian Yun heard him and bit her lips. She only hesitated for a moment and then nodded. "Okay. Jian Yun, I will go with you." Feiang Jianren was worried, but Zhang Yang rejected him as soon as he said it. "Mr. Feng, please wait. Wait for me at the airport." Jian Yun was calm at this moment. Since Zhang Yang said he was not the person she thought he was, he probably knew the current situation. Furthermore, if Hu Chengfeng wanted to tie her up, he would not be so polite. Jian Yun got into Zhang Yang's car. These cars were all low-profile ordinary cars. Their speed was not slow. An hour later, they stopped outside an ancient building. "Miss Jian." Zhang Yang opened the door and led Jian Yun into the house. Then, he left. At this moment, Jian Yun had also scanned the interior of the house. The layout of the house was very simple. There were paintings all over the walls, but it did not make people feel that it was shabby. Instead, it made people feel more imposing. The people who lived here had an extraordinary status. Jian Yun tried her best to calm herself down, especially when she saw the man slowly slowing down from the stairs. The man was around 50 years old. He was tall and straight, his hair was black, and his features were naturally dignified. One look and one could tell that he was someone who had been in a high position for a long time. "You are Jian Yun?" The man was also sizing Jian Yun up. It was just that his expression was too serious. Even his eyes did not reveal the slightest bit of emotion. His entire person gave Jian Yun the feeling of seriousness and majesty. "I am Jian Yun, but Mr. I do not know you." Jian Yun was not nervous at this time. Since this person could get the police to invite her, she was afraid that his status was not low. It was useless to be nervous now. It was better to ask who he was and what he was looking for her for. My surname is Liao. The man pointed at the sofa and signaled Jianyun. Sit. Surnamed Liao? Granny Liao's family? Jianyun's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly felt that she knew who the man in front of her was. To be able to order a high-ranking police officer, this Mr. Liao must also be a high-ranking officer in the police department. There was only one person who fit the criteria. The third brother of the Liao family, Liao Shibing, was the current head of the China Police Department. Why did he look for her? Could it be that Granny Liao asked him to come? Speaking of which, this Mr. Liao was Hu Liancheng's uncle. Jianyun's stomach was full of suspicion, and she was stunned for a moment before she sat down. A maid brought tea and Liao Shibing signaled Jianyun to drink it. Jianyun shook her head. Thank you. I don't drink tea. Change the juice. Liao Shibing ordered the maid. Is there anything I can help you with, Mr. Liao? Jianyun saw that Liao Shibing did not speak for a long time and was just sipping tea, so she could only ask first. Did you talk to Hu Liancheng on the phone? Liao Shibing put down the teacup. He did not look up and his voice was very calm. Jianyun subconsciously bit her lips. She did not know what Liao Shibing meant, so she could only remain silent. Liao Shibing did not plan to let Jianyun speak. What he said next made Jianyun's heart turn cold. I hope you can take the initiative to propose a divorce with Liancheng. When Liao Shibing said this, his tone was still calm, as if he was talking about something normal. However, Jianyun could not calm down. She had to work hard to control herself. She asked, why? The disparity between your families is too great. Your identities do not match. Liao Shibing said calmly. It's fine as long as he doesn't think so. Jianyun's face turned red. Her originally beautiful black eyes were now full of anger, which made her face more beautiful. A marriage is not only about love. Love will fade. Your environment will be different and your vision will be different. He is a person who has achieved great things. With you around, he will only drag him down and let him indulge in his son and daughter, and not think about making progress. We all know that you are not the most suitable person for him. Liao Shibing raised his eyes and looked at Jianyun. Jianyun bit her lips so hard that she wouldn't say anything irrational in her rage. She knew very well that Liao Shibing had a very high status. If he wanted to crush her, it's like crushing an ant. He did not need to go through so much trouble. He brought her here again and said such a long sentence to her. At this moment, Jianyun calmed down. She met Liao Shibing's eyes and asked, then what kind of family background does Mr. Liao think is worthy of Hu Liancheng? Liao Shibing did not hide it. He narrowed his eyes and said, Ma family. Jianyun's heart jumped. Ma family. In the picture Cheng Mu showed her that time, there was one that belonged to Hu Liancheng and Mu Wanru. He told her that although the Mum family was not as powerful as the Hu family, it was still one of the top families in China. It was a big family. Such a family background was indeed very suitable for Hu Liancheng. So, Mr. Liao came to me today to persuade me to agree to divorce Hu Liancheng. Jianyun clenched her fingers and her eyes were full of unyielding spirit. Liao Shibing took a sip of tea and looked at Jianyun, not to advise, but to inform you. He informed her about the divorce and still looked high and mighty. It was indeed something that the highly respected Liao family could do. At this moment, Jianyun did not get angry. Instead, she smiled. What if I don't agree? Liao Shibing's expression was still indifferent. No matter if you agree or not, the result will be the same. Jianyun was so angry that her hands were shaking. She bit her lips tightly and her eyes were filled with anger. Liao Shibing acted as if he did not see it. He put down the teacup in his hand and took out a check from the box on the side of the tea table. He pushed it in front of Jianyun. This money is enough for you to live comfortably for the rest of your life. If you are smart, you should know what to do for you. He was clearly humiliating people, but he could speak so righteously. Jianyun felt her heart burning with anger. She never felt that she was worse than others, even when her mother and she were kicked out of the house by Jian Dongming back then. She just went to college and worked all over the place to earn money for her livelihood. She worked a few jobs to raise the medical fees for her mother. She had been humiliated many times by others. At that time, she did not feel as humiliated as she did now. Yes, at this moment, Jianyun only felt extremely humiliated. This check in front of her was like a slap to her face, making her feel a burning pain. So in the eyes of these people, she was just a person at the bottom of society. They could make her leave with just a bit of money. Liao Shibing saw that Jian Yun did not move for a long time. His face also sank, and his voice became cold and solemn. He said, "Don't you want to take a look at the amount? Or is it too little?" Jian Yun thought about it. She was no longer that ignorant little girl. To be able to survive such a miserable and desperate life, what was this little humiliation in front of her? As long as she did not feel that she was inferior to others. "If you want me to agree to divorce, you can ask Hu Liancheng to tell me personally?" Jian Yun glanced at the check on the coffee table and smiled coldly. In fact, Jian Yun also realized that if Hu Liancheng wanted a divorce, he could bring it up himself. With his personality, he would never let an elder come to her personally. So, what Liao Shibing did today was probably not Hu Liancheng's attitude. He knew that he would not be able to convince Hu Liancheng, so he took action from her and threatened her. He thought that if she was scared by such a scene, and he took out the money again, she would be obedient. "If you refuse to propose a toast, you will be punished." Liao Shibing was angry. He showed his hostility. "I called you here today because of Hu Liancheng. If you don't know what's good for you, I have plenty of ways to make you yield." He was born in the family of generals, and he had a terrible sense of rudeness. In the police department, he had been promoted all the way. It was also because he had solved cases many times that he had made great contributions. When he got angry, Jian Yun felt that the surrounding air seemed to have become a little colder. Jian Yun bit her lips and did not speak. It was not because she was afraid, but because she suddenly thought of herself at this moment. She was not alone. She was pregnant, and there was a small life growing in her stomach. For a moment, Jian Yun thought that if she told her now that she was pregnant, would the Liao family give up the divorce because of the child? However, Jian Yun snorted at her naivety. The Liao family did not take a liking to her, and thought that she was of low status and was not worthy of Hu Liancheng. Then, they naturally would not care about the child in her womb. Perhaps once they found out that she was pregnant, they would force her to have an abortion in order to not affect the marriage between Hu Liancheng and a large family. Therefore, even if it was for the child in her womb, Jian Yun could not act rashly and anger Liao Shibing and the Liao family. "I want to think about it." Jian Yun finally made a concession. Liao Shibing saw Jian Yun give in. Although he knew that this might be a delaying tactic, he did not say anything. Because in Liao Shibing's view, Jian Yun was just a helpless girl. In the face of power, no matter how stubborn a person was, he would have to yield, let alone her. "In a month, Hu Liancheng will marry Mo Wanru. Before that, you must sign this divorce agreement." Liao Shibing pushed another piece of paper after the check. It was written in black and white. The words divorce agreement were clearly written on it. Jian Yun's fingers trembled violently, and her heart was already in turmoil. However, she still looked calm on the surface. However, she stopped for a moment and reached over. She picked up the thin divorce agreement and glanced at it. The corner of her lips slowly curled up, but she sneered in disdain. It seemed that, in the eyes of the Liao family, she was really a beggar. They had already drafted everything, and even listed the terms of the divorce agreement. The conditions were actually pretty good. At least for a girl who came from an ordinary background, these conditions were already pretty good. They gave her a sum of money, an Australian house, and a chance to study abroad that everyone admired. It could ensure that she would not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of her life. At the same time, it could also make her disappear from Hu Liancheng's sight. Sure enough, it was something that Liao family could do. "You can consider it for the next month. If you understand, make this call." Liao Shibing saw Jian Yun take the divorce agreement. The corner of his eyes narrowed, and he leaned back slightly. His fingers gently tapped on the wooden armrest of the pear blossom wood sofa. He lifted his chin slightly to signal Jian Yun to look at the paper on the coffee table. When he spoke again, there was already a thick warning in his tone. "Don't think about looking for Hu Liancheng. This time, the Hu family is facing something extraordinary. If they are not careful, they will die. The Liao family only has to protect Hu Liancheng. As for the Hu family, it is not within our consideration." Liao Shibing's words made Jian Yun frown. She looked up at him and could not tell what Liao Shibing meant. What did he mean by the Hu family is not within their consideration? Did he mean that the Liao family would not interfere in the matters of the Hu family? Or was it that the Liao family wanted to add fuel to the fire and completely destroy the Hu family? Then why did they want Hu Liancheng and the Meng Yu family to marry each other? Jian Yun could not figure it out, so she did not think about it anymore. She understood that if she did not take this divorce agreement today, she might not even be able to walk out of this door. When Liao Shibing saw Jian Yun put away the divorce agreement, the coldness on his face faded slightly. At the same time, he also looked at Jian Yun a few more times. He knew that his aunt liked this girl very much. Even Aunt Kui praised her, calling this girl pure and kind. She was a good and beautiful child. In his opinion, although it was only a short time of contact, he also felt that this girl was very special. He could endure being humiliated. Under the powerful aura he deliberately released, she was still neither servile nor overbearing. But so what? Her family background and identity meant that she was not worthy of Hu Liancheng. Not only would their union not bring any benefits to Hu Liancheng, it would even drag Hu Liancheng down and become his weakness. The Liao family would never allow Hu Liancheng to be destroyed by such a woman. Therefore, since Hu Liancheng was indecisive and could not make a decision, it was up to the Liao family to do it. This time, the problem that the Hu family faced was not only internal conflicts. Every family had an unspeakable problem, and the Hu family was no exception. As a large financial group that was rich enough to rival a country, the higher-ups had already noticed the Hu family. In fact, Liao Shibing was not worried about what Hu Chengfeng could do. However, the Liao family and the Hu family were in-laws. If the Hu family were to fall, it would have a huge impact on the Liao family. Therefore, what the Liao family needed to do now was to take care of themselves first. When Jian Yun came out of the small building, she finally let go of her tightly clenched fists. It was clearly summer, but she felt cold sweat on her back. Liao Shibing was worthy of being the head of the police department. He released such a strong aura just to force her to sign the divorce agreement. Xiang Yun was actually very clear that the reason the Liao family came looking for her was because they had suffered at Hu Liancheng's hands. That was why they wanted to pick a soft persimmon. But they had miscalculated. Hu Liancheng protected her and loved her. He was her husband. God, how could she divorce him at a time like this? What was the difference between that and betrayal? Jian Yun believed that no matter what happened, Hu Liancheng would be able to handle it well. Since Liao Shibing had given her a month to think, she thought that she would be able to see Hu Liancheng again during this period of time. As long as Hu Liancheng could come back, everything would be resolved. Jian Yun was still driven to the airport by Zhang Yong himself. In the car, Jian Yun had already called Fang Jianran. When they arrived at the airport, Fang Jianran saw that she was safe and sound. Only then did he feel slightly relieved. However, Fang Jianran wanted to ask who Jian Yun was looking for her. What did he say? However, Zhang Yong did not leave after sending Jian Yun over. He kept smiling and standing to the side, making it difficult for him to ask in front of Zhang Yong. Xian Yun's expression was calm, as if she just drank some tea and chatted casually with someone. Her boldness made Zhang Yong secretly speechless. He even admired Jian Yun more in his heart. To be able to be so calm and collected in front of Department Head Liu, this woman was not simple. Thank you for sending me over, Officer Zhang. Is there anything else? There was still an hour before the plane took off. Jian Yun saw that Zhang Yong was still here and could not help frowning. She did not like Liao Shibing and naturally did not like Zhang Yong. Seeing him reminded her of the piece of paper in her bag. Zhang Yong narrowed his eyes and smiled. I was ordered to send Miss Jian off. Naturally, I want to see Miss Jian get on the plane with my own eyes. Jian Yun's eyes flashed and she did not say anything else. However, she did not miss the fierce look that flashed in the corner of Zhang Yong's eyes when he spoke. Just now, Zhang Yong seemed to be looking in a certain direction behind her. An hour later, on the plane to Qinghu City, Jian Yun looked at Zhang Yong who was sitting beside her and sighed. Officer Zhang, are you trying to spy on me? Zhang Yong extended a finger and shook it. I'm protecting you. Xian Yun held her chin and felt helpless. Fang Jianran was not a flower in a greenhouse. Zhang Yong did not leave and he found something was wrong. He looked carefully and indeed saw some suspicious figures. Officer Zhang? Will he, Zidong, be in trouble? Jian Yun asked. Yes. Zhang Yong answered straightforwardly. But there are people in the He family who have strong backing. After that, they didn't say anything. Although there were some suspicious people on the plane, no one dared to cause trouble with Zhang Yong. When they got off the plane, someone came to pick them up. Zhang Yong saw that no one was paying attention to him, so he went over himself. Miss Jian, at least someone should be a guest. Aren't you going to treat me to a meal? Xian Yun looked at Zhang Yong. Before she could say anything, Zhang Yong had already rushed to speak. Haha, Miss Jian is so kind. You definitely won't reject me, right? I refuse. Xian Yun did not hold back and lifted her foot to get into the car. Zhang Yong quickly squeezed into the car and pushed Fang Jianran into the middle. He laughed like a fox. Haha, I knew Miss Jian was joking. Xian Yun and Fang Jianran both had something on their minds, so they did not bother about Zhang Yong. Furthermore, They both knew that Zhang Yang would follow them. He must have been ordered by that big shot and could not be driven away. They simply let him go. The car was called by Fang Zhanran. He first sent Jian Yun back to the Hu family's villa. Zhang Yang got out of the car and watched Fang Zhanran leave. Jian Yun told the butler to go and greet Zhang Yang, and she herself went into the bedroom. She felt very tired after running around the whole morning. She went into sleep and only woke up at 8 o'clock in the evening. Jian Yun took a shower and took out her phone to take a look. There were a few missed calls. They were from Yang Fei and Bai Yanran. Jian Yun called back and heard Yang Fei nervously ask, "Yan Duo, my rehabilitation treatment is almost over here, and I will be back in a week. However, I have been watching the news these few days and said that the Hu family's business is problematic. What exactly is going on? Is Lian Cheng okay? Mom, I don't understand business matters. Lian Cheng is very good. Don't worry." Jian Yun and Yang Fei chatted casually. She originally wanted to tell Yang Fei that she was pregnant. But after thinking about it, she decided not to talk about it first. At the same time, Jian Yun also thought that the imperial capital was the territory of Liao family and Hu family. Yang Fei was not safe there. So she said, "Mom, go and tell the doctor tomorrow. We won't do the treatment later. Let's go back to Green Lake first." "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Yang Fei was very sensitive and immediately asked. "Nothing. Mom, come back and talk." Jian Yun did not want to say it now to make Yang Fei worry. She gave a few more words and hung up the phone. At this time, Bai Yanran's phone call came in. "Hello, Jian Yun, what are you doing? Why aren't you picking up the phone?" Ever since Bai Yanran got married to someone she liked, she had become familiar with Jian Yun. The two of them often chatted and talked on the phone. "I just fell asleep. I didn't hear you." Jian Yun drank some water. "What's wrong?" "Yanran, why are you looking for me at this time?" "I just want to tell you that I came to the Imperial Military Hospital to study. When I am free tomorrow, I will go to see Auntie and tell you." When Bai Yanran said this, she suddenly changed the topic. "It's just Jian Yun. Why did I hear that something happened to the Hu family?" She even said that Hu Liancheng and Old Master Hu had gone missing. "Is that true?" Jian Yun's eyes dimmed when she heard this, but she did not answer directly. "Yanran, don't believe what is said outside." She had just arrived at the imperial capital in the morning and was already known by the people of the Liao family. Jian Yun later realized that the Liao family must be very powerful in the imperial capital. On the plane, Zhang Yang also hinted that she should not make any phone calls easily. His meaning was very obvious. Someone was monitoring her. This person could be from the Liao family or Hu Chengfeng. Jian Yun did not miss out on those people who were secretly watching her at the airport and on the plane. Bai Yanran was very smart. She immediately understood that Jian Yun did not want to talk about this sensitive topic on the phone, so she did not ask anymore. The two of them chatted for a while. When she heard that Jian Yun was not in the mood, she said goodbye. After hanging up the phone, Jian Yun sat beside the bed and was stunned for a while. She then got up and went to the washroom. She took a shower and went downstairs to find something to eat. She saw Zhang Yang calmly sitting on the living room sofa and chatting with the butler. The butler should know Zhang Yang's identity. Although he did not know the purpose of his visit, he was still polite and Jian Yun could not be bothered with him. She casually ate a bit and then went back to her room. Just like that. After a few days, Jian Yun was no different from usual. When she came back from work, she would stay in the bedroom and study room. Occasionally, she would go to the zither room to practice, as if nothing bad had happened during that trip to the imperial city. Zhang Yang acted as a bodyguard. He would follow Jian Yun whenever she went out these few days. The more he saw how calm Jian Yun was, the more curious he became. Although he did not know exactly what Division Chief Liao had told Jian Yun that day, he could tell with his toes that it was definitely not a good thing. This girl was really not simple. She could withstand the aura of the division chief and even act as if nothing had happened. Did she have a big heart, or did she trust Hu Liancheng too much? She felt that Hu Liancheng would definitely be able to resolve everything. However, no one knew that although Jian Yun looked calm on the surface these few days, her heart was suffering. On one hand, she was worried about Hu Liancheng. Her intense longing made her unable to sleep at night. On the other hand, Yang Fei called and said that the hospital in the capital did not agree for her to leave now. How could Jian Yun not know that there must be someone pulling the strings? But other than accepting it now, there was nothing she could do. She was just afraid that the Liao family would use her mother to threaten her. These days, Jian Yun had been keeping an eye on the news. However, the news these days was too dull. No one mentioned the internal strife of the Hu family anymore. Even the news on the internet was blocked. Although Jian Yun knew that the Hu family had great foresight, and that the major families in the capital were involved, she would not let the news report bad news. However, it was really strange that the news was so calm. A few days passed in a row. It was Saturday again. Jian Yun did not want to stay at home, so she went out. Originally, she wanted to look for Wu Wenjing and Luo Yanyan, but then she thought that Wu Wenjing was still sitting on the moon after giving birth. Luo Yanyan had already moved back to school. Her school was too far from the city, and it would take 2 to 3 hours to make a trip back and forth. Jian Yun also decided not to look for them. Jian Yun walked around casually, and Zhang Yang followed her. He was very relaxed and comfortable here. He did not feel uncomfortable at all. In his words, he used to be able to sleep in the garbage when he went out to squat on a case. He had slept in the mortuary before, but now he could live in a big villa. It was simply too comfortable. There were many people on the streets on weekends. Jian Yun was tired from walking, so she went to a milk tea shop. She ordered a glass of juice and sat down to rest. She sat by the window and could see the bustling crowd outside. The busy crowd calmed Jian Yun's anxiety over the past few days. Zhang Yang sat opposite Jian Yun and drank a cup of milk tea. He said, "Miss Jian, actually, I admire you." Usually, when a woman meets something like this, she would have lost her sense of propriety long ago. "You can actually be so calm." Jian Yun ignored him. This was not the first time Zhang Yang had been so cold, so he took out his phone and started playing the game. He knew Jian Yun did not like him because he was sent by Liu Shibing to monitor her. He had to report Jian Yun's movements to the higher-ups every day. It was normal that Jian Yun did not like him. However, Jian Yun could actually bear it so patiently, which also surprised Zhang Yang. Jian Yun had only drunk half of the juice when she suddenly found someone walking to her table. She stood there and did not leave. When she raised her head, she immediately raised her eyebrows. She did not expect that she would bump into someone she knew when she went shopping. This person in front of her was none other than Chen Xinran. "Miss Jian, what a coincidence." Chen Xinran was wearing a simple white t-shirt, and her long legs under her hot pants were very attractive. When she saw Jian Yun looking at her, she smiled and greeted her. "Of course, this is your friend? What a beautiful girl." The person who was with Chen Xinran was a young, foreign man. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. His facial features were deep, and his body was very muscular and tall. He looked like a model. Jian Yun could understand him when he spoke English. Moreover, when he saw her, he had a stunned expression on his face. "Weissen, go over there and wait for me. I want to talk to a friend." Chen Xinran heard the man praise Jian Yun's beauty and the way his eyes lit up. Her expression was a little unhappy. She pushed the man and said, although Weissen really wanted to stay and get close to Jian Yun, he was helpless that Chen Xinran kept pushing him. He could only smile politely with Jian Yun and turn around to walk forward. Jian Yun knew Chen Xinran had something to say, so she looked at Zhang Yang. Although Zhang Yang really wanted to hear from the corner, Jian Yun's eyes were too cold. He could only smile awkwardly and take his phone to the table next to him. After Chen Xinran sat down, she asked for a glass of mineral water. The two of them sat opposite each other and did not speak for a long time. Chen Xinran was the first to speak. "What do you plan to do in Hu family?" "What do you mean I will do?" Jian Yun used a straw to stir the juice. She and Chen Xinran were not familiar with each other, so naturally she could not tell her true thoughts. "I heard that Hu Liancheng will have a hard time winning this time." Chen Xinran looked at Jian Yun, as if she wanted to see something from her face. But Jian Yun's expression was so calm that she could not remain calm. "But I trust him," Jian Yun said lightly. "I'm afraid you don't know about the Hu family," Chen Xinran said with a smile. "But that's true. He doesn't like to talk about family matters. When I was in college, I only found out from others that his family background was so prominent, but he didn't like to talk about it. I only found out later that his mother didn't like him." "You want to tell me about this?" Jian Yun's long eyelashes trembled. She lifted her eyelids and looked coldly at Chen Xinran. She was not so naive that she thought Chen Xinran was here to reminisce or come up with strategies. The biggest possibility was that Chen Xinran knew that Hu Liancheng might be in danger this time, and she happened to meet Jian Yun here. So she came to see if she was in a very bad situation now and then to stimulate her. Chen Xinran's eyelids twitched nervously. She admitted that when she found out that Hu Liancheng was at a disadvantage in the internal strife of Hu family, she had a perverted feeling in her heart. Because she did not get that man, her heart was filled with jealousy and hatred. She actually secretly hoped that he was in a bad situation, so that he would know how big of a mistake it was to leave her.